Welcome in Thursday morning edition, Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford Studio here with you today, one day away from the double-decker weekend in Oxford, Ole Miss, and Georgia at Swayze Field. Rebels scuffling quite a bit in college baseball right now. Georgia playing better. They had a big weekend last week, sweeping Arkansas, and then got one against Florida the previous weekend, as well as very heralded successful freshman Charlie Condon killing the baseball right now. So we'll hit a little baseball, but we're going to talk to Jeffrey Wright.
He's so good.
Coming up on the show today, as we do every Thursday. He was probably in FedEx Forum last night. Grizzlies staving off elimination, forcing a Game 6 back in Los Angeles. So we had a lot of different topics with Jeffrey today. Podcast brought to you every day by the Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford. Lunch specials, $5.69, a couple sides, any size fountain drink. Also, let them take care of dinner tonight. Ribs, all their hot case items. They've got chickens, they've got sides, they've got desserts, they've got whatever you need there, including their 49-cent fill-ups and your fountain drinks there with Blue Sky. And remember, in the Jackson metro area at the Clinton Blue Sky, got the homemade donuts every morning. A lot of different options there. Hope you're enjoying one with your coffee as we're getting started this morning on the live stream. So all that at the Blue Sky locations around Mississippi. And again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is that number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom. What'd I do?
Nothing. Screens. I'm just telling you.
Oh.
You're good.
Oh, you were pointing. I was like,
yeah, my bad.
662-257-1900 is that number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest is completely up to you. You can shop that quote around, or you can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. 662-257-1900. Jeffrey Wright. Other guests join on the MyPerfectFranchise.net hotline. If you're a displaced corporate executive, you're wanting to put your career in your own hands, you're an experienced entrepreneur just looking to diversify. Regardless, Andy Ludicky can help. He owns multiple franchises and businesses, uses his expertise to help others find their American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. So call Andy. Put your life and your career in your own hands. It's 100% free. You have nothing to lose. Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net or contact Andy anytime at andy@myperfectfranchise.net or 404-973-9901.
We're going to get Jeffrey on the horn on the My Perfect Franchise hotline in a second. But friend of the pod, our friend, got to give some credit to Ben Minch yesterday. Knocking out, he's been working out, been getting the jog in for charity. He's raised a lot of money for that Hogs for the Cause. It was a 10K yesterday in a little under 58 minutes. Pretty good there for Ben.
57:41.
That's a damn good job by Minch right there. I'm proud of my boy.
Let me tell you how much that resonated with me. I had literally just finished running a 10K, and I ran mine in 57 minutes and 40 seconds.
Did you really?
Yeah, and was pretty pleased with it. And then Ben...
I mean, in all seriousness, like for anyone who doesn't run, he maxed efforted that to a level that I'm proud of him. Like
he sprinted the finish.
Yeah, that's a move right there.
When you consider how unhealthy he was, and
that's what I'm saying.
Ben would tell you this.
Yeah.
How unhealthy he was when he started this lifestyle change. If I had told him years ago, you're going to run a 10K, which is 6.25 miles, in under an hour, he would have said, "There's no way." Number one, he would have said, "I can't run that far."
Really proud of him. I mean,
and to do it on a track like that, there's a mental component to that as well.
Well, because he had run the 10K in New Orleans a couple weeks ago, and he ran it just over an hour. At that point, the bet with his coworkers was under an hour, and he went like an hour 41. And he had a point here. He told everybody, "I can do it because we had to weave through people. I got affected by the crowd. If you put me on a place where I don't have to weave through the crowd, it's going to cut the time off." And it is. You absolutely go extra than whatever it is you were running in a race.
Oh, there's no question. I've run 2 marathons where had I not had people to weave through, I would have done it in under 4 hours.
Yeah.
But so, you lose time early in the marathon maneuvering the traffic.
I mean, it's a cool day for him yesterday running the 10K. Like you said, his lifestyle change. Today is the 3-year anniversary of Ben stopping drinking, by the way, too, today. So 3 years to the day that he's had alcohol. So anyway, good luck to him. Proud of him. It's a big deal. You want to get Jeffrey on the line
Yeah, sure.
While we're waiting? Crazy upset last night. The Milwaukee Bucks are out of the NBA playoffs. They blew a 16-point fourth quarter lead in Milwaukee yesterday, losing to the Heat, and now second round matchup of Heat and Knicks. Nobody had that coming for the second round.
I'm now paranoid about every time I call Jeffrey whether I'm calling the right number or not.
That woman,
bless her heart, she hates me.
Hi, you've reached Jeffrey with 929.
he says, "Call me on Skype."
That's what I just did.
He means his username, not his phone. Like the actual Skype contact. You know what I'm talking about?
The person you are trying to reach is currently unavailable.
We're working on it, people. I know. I'll cut it out of the actual pod with sound.
I don't really know what he means. I've called both numbers.
No, it's not a number. He means like literally call him on Skype.
I did. That's what I've got right there. Okay. Can you see it?
I mean, yeah, enough. Let me ask him if he can call us. Can you send me your username over a text that I can tell him to call that username and let him do it?
If I can figure it out.
The person you are trying to reach is currently unavailable.
Just hang in, sip your coffee. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm sending it to you. This is why I kind of dread the night show tonight. Guests and numbers, and it just, ever since we made that change, I'm not sure that I ever mastered it.
There he goes.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am doing well. How about yourselves?
I'm good. Appreciate you taking some time. It's a huge win for the Grizzlies last night. That was a kind of a, no matter what the series does, that was a test for them last night after some of the comments that even their own coach made about maturity and that kind of thing, for them to show up and not just beat the Lakers, but dominate the Lakers last night. Had to, regardless of what happens this season, that was felt like a bit of a validation win for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I thought going into the game, I really thought the game was going to go one of two ways. I thought there was very much what you saw last night. Oftentimes when you see a home team win a game 4 and they're up 3-1, in the back of their minds, they know they got game 6 at home. And so, particularly with this Lakers team, and you can tell with LeBron, what all he had to expend in game 4, I thought there was a chance that he'd save his legs. And I think we saw that. On the flip side, because of just kind of the turmoil that you've been seeing with the Grizzlies, I also thought there was a chance that, hey man, they may just quit. Like they could lay down. And they did not. The thing that makes it difficult to assess a game like that last night is it was mission accomplished. And you're right. Like I do think that they showed up, and I think they showed the formula that they've needed to show for much of this series. You get 82 points from Ja, Jaren, and Dez, and you get the big nights from Ja and Dez. If you're going to beat the Lakers, those three guys have to play well, and that's the first time I felt like all three of them played well in the same game. And so now it sets up an opportunity to go and kind of flip the script. You've got to do something you haven't done the entire year. You're going to have to go win on the road as an underdog. And it's one of those situations where it's like, I think if they come back Sunday, I kind of like their chances, but they've not proven to be a good road team all year. And now it sets up a Friday where they're going to have to go and prove that they're more than just barking.
They're the better team. There's no question about that. They should have won Game 4. They kind of let it get away. There was a defensive lapse on that last possession. You can't let LeBron get that close to the basket. But I agree with you. I think if they can,
you can't let him go downhill like that.
yeah, I think if they can find a way to survive Game 6, I think they win Game 7 and maybe win it in a way that kind of takes the franchise to the next place. I was listening to Giannis Antetokounmpo talk about losing. He was asked if the season was a failure, and he gave a pretty in-depth answer about, no, it's not a failure. You're always striving. It's a process. And I mean, I think that holds true for Memphis, even if the series doesn't work out. But I think they're right there in Game 6. I mean, they got to focus on just playing basketball, which I think is what Jenkins was trying to say between games 4 and 5. Is it's all this other stuff that gets in their heads that they've got to eliminate. They've got to focus on the task at hand, which is LeBron James and Anthony Davis, basically.
No, and whether or not it's fair, appropriate, who knows? I personally think the Timberwolves team that they played last year is better than this Lakers team, just from talent and whatnot. But this Lakers team has two clear differences. They have, if not the greatest player of all time, the second or third greatest player of all time. Yeah, he's 38, but you can tell he's still good enough physically that he can absolutely destroy you with his mind. And whether or not this would be a better series win than what they did last year, it's certainly going to resonate more, and it will be viewed as actually accomplishing something. And this would be kind of the first thing that they've accomplished, because you will have beaten LeBron James. You will have given him his first ever series loss with a 3-1, with a 3-1 advantage. And I think that would be a real significant accomplishment. The problem is what stands in the way between that is kind of been their Achilles heel all year. They got to go on the road, and they've got to figure out a way to get a win.
So do you anticipate that? What's your guess?
I have no idea, because I didn't know what to make of. My instinct says that LeBron last night, he went all out. He played the most minutes in Game 4. It felt like he was really conserving energy. And the biggest question for me now is, what is the status of Luke Kennard? Because when Kennard is on the floor, the Lakers have to play honestly on defense.
Yeah, because he can shoot so well.
And it's not even like he's getting a ton of shots up. It's just that they have to play 5-on-5. When Brooks is on the floor, the Lakers defensively, not only are they leaving him open, they're trying to take away the passing options. So they're truly daring him to shoot, and he's just been taking the bait, and he has been horrible on the offensive end. I mean, it's no coincidence last night when the Grizzlies had their big runs that Dillon wasn't on the floor.
No, Dillon's been a negative in this series. Not just his words, but his play. He hasn't played well. He played well in Game 2. That's about it.
I actually think his play, his words are gonna garner all the attention, but I think it's been his play that's been the more problematic issue.
If they don't get out of round 1, do they try to move him this offseason? Because it looks like they tried to move him in the middle of the season.
So he's essentially, though, he's basically, they would just let him walk.
Okay.
And my suspicion, it's tough to tell, because a lot of the conversations you hear with Dillon, it's typically when he's not playing well and everyone's frustrated with him. The thing that will be interesting for me to see is his play during the postseason, I think, is making him a cheaper and cheaper option. This isn't just some deal in the abstract where it's like, well, would you rather have someone better than Dillon Brooks? Well, I think the answer is yes. I think they clearly tried to make that happen when you saw the offers that they made at the deadline. They've been unable to get someone better than Dillon Brooks since. And My gut says that now he is, even if he were at the right price, my gut says that they're just ready to move on, which I also think brings up a bigger question. To me, there's so much focus locally about, oh, you can't say anything about Ja, it'll make him leave. Oklahoma City didn't make Kevin Durant leave. They never turned on him. New Orleans didn't turn on Anthony Davis. In the end, whether or not, I think it's more clear cut with Anthony Davis, like they did not put a team around him that he felt like he could win with. And then with Durant, basically both guys left because they thought they could go win somewhere else. The biggest question now for Kleiman is, can you put a team around Morant? Can you put a team around Dez and Jaren that makes those guys want to stay? And it's by like the same token, it's a fun story. But the reason why LeBron went back to Cleveland was because Cleveland had a better roster than what Miami was going to have.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sam Presti was giving his end of the, excuse me, my voice is, it's not good today. Sam Presti was giving his, end of the season sort of State of the Union address. And
the thing that you do on breakout day or whatever.
Yeah. And he was talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and about some of the players on the team. And he said that it's his opinion that the mistake that most of the NBA makes is that they appease players, that the system is set up for the player and the organization to sort of be against one another. And he said what he's tried to do there is don't appease and rather challenge, because the only way that you grow, you don't grow through appeasement. You grow through challenge. And he said, it applies to relationships, it applies to work, whatever, outside of basketball, but then it absolutely applies to basketball, that they could spend a lot of their energy trying to appease Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who probably is going to be first-team All-NBA this year, or they could say what they said to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is, if you want to be great, if you want to be a great player, you've got to become an even better defender. If you become an elite defender, what he said was, if Shai becomes an elite defender, he's a problem. He becomes a problem for the rest of the league. I mean, a big problem. And he's right. And if Shai doesn't become a great defender, he's just going to be a really good NBA player. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. He's making the max. He's a franchise player. And I think that applies to Morant this offseason. I think that whether Memphis loses on Friday or wins the title, if Ja wants to be a great player, Memphis can't spend all of its efforts appeasing him. Memphis has to challenge him. Because, look, if he's going to walk, he's going to walk. Your example about Durant is exactly right. There was nothing more that Oklahoma City could have done to make Kevin Durant stay. They did everything they could have done. They were in the process of bringing in Al Horford, and they traded Serge Ibaka for Victor Oladipo. And if he had gone to the organization and said, I demand that you trade Westbrook, they probably would have done it. But at the end of the day, they couldn't make him stay. And Memphis is going to be in that boat with Morant. And so bending over backwards and never challenging the player to mature and to grow is an error.
Yeah, and I think you can go beyond basketball. I think what Sam Presti said there pretty much just applies to the human condition.
Yeah.
So the thing that has been interesting to watch, and I don't have a good grasp. I've talked to people, and you kind of get the I don't know. There's no question that the Grizzlies as an organization have some culpability with what has gone on with Morant this year. They've enabled him. They'll tell you that they were aware of it, like they're not blind, and that they had tried, and what the message wasn't received. The thing that's going to be interesting with Morant is, at some point, we're going to have to answer the question, does he feel like he's got to make any changes? And it's still unclear to me. Like, even if you take the strip club video, my suspicion is that he thinks the only thing that he did wrong is he went live on his own personal account. Like, I think it was clear to me. It's clear what happened. And again, this is one man's opinion. This isn't reporting. He thought he was on a burner, and I suspect there's a burner that has Ja's private life, if you will, out there. And it appeared that he was drinking, and he went on the wrong account. The thing that's more interesting, though, to me is I think LeBron ushered in this mindset. I think it was Windhorst that said, LeBron wants ownership to be uncomfortable. And that's why he did the short-term contracts. That's why, he's so demanding. He wants ownership to be uncomfortable. I don't know. Is there going to be a course correction, or is this just a situation of there's no going back? This is the way that it is. Because I know ownership throughout the league is frustrated in the sense of well, why these rules that we was it Paul George? Who was the first guy that just signed the max and then he's like, trade me? The whole point of the super max was to try and let teams that got homegrown guys keep them. Well, the moment that they started signing the deal and then demanding trades, well, that kind of flipped the script. I still think it boils down to the Grizzlies. One thing that this playoff run has shown, and I understand that they're Grizzlies fans saying, well, Steven Adams is hurt, Brandon Clark is hurt. Even given that, they're still at least one player short. I think that they're aware of that. And the question is, are they going to be able to figure out a way to bring someone else in?
Yeah, I don't know what their cap sheet looks like. And, I don't know what the new CBA is. It hasn't been formally approved.
I mean, they'll never admit this publicly, but I think they're going to catch a break with Ja not making first, one of the all NBA teams, because he won't get the super max. He'll just sign the max. But, next year, then Dez's they're going to have to get a deal with Dez, and Dez's contract will kick in the next year. I mean, they're about to start to get into the crunch that everyone does when you've got three guys. Where they're going to catch another break, it looks like Jaren Jackson's contract's going to be a steal, because when Jaren was up for the extension, he was coming off the injury, and he chose to take the guaranteed money rather than, betting on himself for one more year. And so now you've got Jaren on the books for, basically, I think it's like 21, 22 million. And that contract's going to look like a steal. But they have tried to find the piece through the draft. Zaire Williams has, they will say they haven't given up on him, but I think the day and age of thinking that he's going to be that fourth piece, I think that's gone. Maybe he can be a rotation guy, whatnot. They've been trying to do it through the draft, and I think now they're going to have to figure out a way. They're going to have to figure out a way to go get somebody, I think, that's more established.
It's the challenge for the small market team. You can build through the draft, and the CBA, my understanding is that the new CBA is going to be more small market friendly than the previous one, where you can keep your own guys as long as you're willing to pay the tax. You can keep your guys that you drafted, that you developed on long-term deals. You can give out multiple max deals and that kind of thing. But you're right. When the ultimate step is, okay, we got to go get one more guy, whether it's in Memphis's case, it's probably the third option, the fourth option. Can you get that guy to come to Memphis, even when the selling point is, hey, we're this close to a title, we're this close to going to the finals, to winning, to getting a ring? Can you get players to go, yep, I'm not going to go to Brooklyn or Miami or Los Angeles. I'm going to go to Miami. I'm going to go to Memphis. I'm going to go to Oklahoma City. I'm going to go to Indianapolis. History says that's a hard sell.
Well, and to be fair to the Grizzlies, if you look at what they offered Toronto for OG Anunoby, who I actually think that's kind of a blessing in disguise. I'm not saying that I think OG's a bad player, but I think OG OG happened to be the belle of the ball when there just wasn't much on the table. And I think the Grizzlies would have drastically overpaid for him. And I'm not convinced that that's the answer. But I mean, they offered Brooklyn even more for Bridges. And, maybe now Brooklyn this summer thinks a little differently, but it seems like they want to try to build around Bridges. But I mean, that becomes the question. I mean, how are you going to be able to find someone else? And how do you do it? And really, the only options the Grizzlies have, I don't think they're going to trade. They're not going to trade Ja. They're not going to trade Jaren. They're not going to trade Dez. So they've got a ton of draft capital. You're just going to have to try to get creative and figure out a way to make a deal for someone like that. But it's not as simple as just snapping in your fingers and saying, go make a trade. Well, a trade takes a trade partner. And right now, when you look at it, I don't know what the options are. Everyone points to, well, let's find who the next disgruntled star is and go and make the offer. But to your point, Neal, a lot of times those disgruntled stars, like, their thought isn't, get me to Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Anthony Edwards could potentially look at Minnesota this offseason and go, you know what? This isn't working. You guys made bad deals. I want out. I'm going to stomp my feet until you put me out. And Memphis probably has the draft capital, and they could put some people in place and stuff. But is he going to agree to go to Memphis? And if he does go to Memphis, is he going to agree to be happy in Memphis for 4, 5, 6 seasons? I don't know the answer to that. And so that's where I go back to Presti all the time, where Presti says we have to let these things determine themselves. You can't just pull the levers and push the buttons, because you can do that, and you can look at Atlanta, for example. You can make mistakes where you really shrink your window.
Yeah, and then, I mean, also with Edwards, Edwards is going to have a contract.
Yeah, and he's going to want a supermax.
And I'm trying to see, like, right now, for next year, their active roster cap is at 137. To Neal's point, we don't exactly know. We don't know what the final salary cap is going to be for next year. But I mean, essentially, they don't have a ton of cap room. Like, I don't even know how you would make a deal. Like, in the hypothetical world that Neal mentions with an Anthony Edwards, like, I don't even know how you make that work.
Yeah.
Because 33.5 is going to be tied up in Morant. Jaren's is 27. I mean, I guess Kennard would have to be involved. That's 14. Tyus, Adams. I mean, you probably have to give up Kennard, Tyus, Adams. I mean, you don't even have a 5 in that scenario. So, I mean, this is the reality of the situation. It's trying to figure out how to make things work when, there is a salary cap.
Switching gears a little, Jeffrey, I know it's used to be a little more probably appointment viewing. Where are you standing on the draft tonight? Is there excitement? Do you care? Is it just about your team? What's up with you?
So it is nice that I used to have to look forward to the draft for like the last 6 or 7 years because my team sucked, and it's the only chance that you had to have a little sense of optimism. Picking down in the 20s, if you are someone that has if you're someone that can grade a pick in the 20s, I tip my cap to you. Like, the thing that I think is interesting is we know Bryce is going 1. What happens after that? Because is CJ Stroud really falling? Or are we going to look up and say, well, that was kind of smoke all along? Is Levis really going to be the second quarterback? Is Richardson going to be the second quarterback? Are people going to look past Jalen Carter's off the field stuff? Like, to me, I do actually think it's a pretty interesting draft. I think the thing that feels like it's been kind of making it maybe a little, it feels like it's not quite as hyped coming up. And I think it's just because Bryce has been assumed that he's going 1. But I do think after 1, I think it becomes fascinating.
A lot of late 36-hour buzz here. Will Anderson going 2. It's been kind of a push the last day or so.
And see, that's the one that I can't figure out. Is that from reporting, or is that from people going, D'Amico Ryans played at Alabama too?
That's Houston telling you that they're cool with Davis Mills.
Or that they don't love the other ones. And then there's also the possibility, I don't know how they feel about Hendon Hooker, but, would you rather, you've got another pick at 12 or whatnot. And I mean, to me, though, the problem is, can you make the statement we're good with Davis Mills?
No, I mean,
No.
come on.
No.
Like, at a certain level, like, you have the second pick. Yeah, you screwed it up. You should have the first pick. But, like, can you really just go into next year? Like, I feel like you got to take one of them.
I would be putting out the buzz that I'm taking quarterback and panicking some of these other teams and making somebody trade up with me and let me get another asset and then maybe move down to 3 to 4 to 5, and then I'll get one of the defensive guys. I think that's the route I would take, and maybe that's harder said.
Yeah, I think the problem is, I think it's a lot harder to kind of misdirection people, because in the end, you're all interviewing the same players, and what are they telling you? You talk to the agents, what are they telling you? I think you can kind of sort through a lot of it. So to me, like, I just, at a certain point, it's like, maybe you don't love one of these guys, but man, I just think you're at the point where you got to take one of them.
Yeah, under this scenario, they would be basically gambling on Levis or Richardson being there at 12.
Or, I mean, Hooker is the other one. And, I mean, I don't know. Like, I like Hendon Hooker, but Hendon Hooker's got the same questions that Matt had last year. We've not seen a quarterback come from that offense and be good in the NFL. Doesn't mean that they weren't got great college players. It doesn't mean that we just haven't seen it. Someone may end up being the first. But, man, I don't know. Like,
and Hendon Hooker's 25 years old, and so if there's a 3-year learning curve, man, you're fast out of his prime seasons.
Yeah, and he's coming off an ACL. I mean, I don't know. I think this is all fascinating because it feels like I ended up watching some more Bryce Young this week, and I just find myself like in awe of him. Is he a surefire bet? No. I mean, the size is an issue. You have to build differently around him, but it does feel like the most obvious answer to me when I watched college football last year, Bryce Young's the best quarterback. That's kind of what we're seeing.
I come back to this every time, right? And I'm nowhere close to a football expert. I don't pretend to be one. Some of the people in my field who do a lot of that, I find it to be really disingenuous. That being said, it was the one game last season, Ole Miss, Alabama, in Oxford, walking out of the press box, I said, if Alabama had anyone else at quarterback today, any other quarterback in college football today, Ole Miss wins the game. Alabama won the game because Bryce Young won the game on the field, and then he went and got on the sideline and showed the kind of leader that he is. You saw it happen, and they came back out, and they just drove. He made plays. He stayed composed. They were in trouble that day a little bit. Alabama was not a great team last year, and Bryce Young won that game. That was the day that there was a zero doubt that the best player on that field, head and shoulders better than anyone else, was Bryce Young.
No, I mean, even in this conversation, if you put Hendon Hooker on that team last year, I think Ole Miss wins the game.
Agreed.
And
any other quarterback, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Richardson, any of them, Ole Miss wins that game. Bryce Young won that game.
I just also think I completely understand why you'd be a little bit hesitant on C.J. Stroud. Much like we're talking about with the Baylor offense, the Baylor Bryles offense not having a ton of success, we haven't seen a lot of Ohio State quarterbacks go and have success in the NFL. Now, jury could still be out on Fields. The one thing, though, that I do come back with Stroud, could someone please pop in some film and show me a better game than what he did against Georgia?
There's not one.
And, you know,
There's not one.
To me, like, I understand it's going to be like an easy connection. Okay, they're both Ohio State quarterbacks. This does feel like, if he does indeed fall, this does feel just like Justin Fields falling in the draft, in which football guys outthought this. You know, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were the 1 and 2 quarterbacks basically since they were sophomores in high school. Fields, those two guys going into the COVID year were the presumptive 1 and 2 picks. The weird COVID year happened. Fields didn't have a great year, but he still had that Clemson game in the bowl game, and you're like, okay, this guy's amazing. But you had people that talked themselves into Wilson. You had people that talked themselves into Trey Lance. To me, like, that just feels exactly like the situation we're in with Levis and that we're in with Richardson. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young have been the 1 and 2 quarterbacks basically since their sophomore years of high school. Like, it feels like the exact same scenario playing out.
What do you want for the Giants tonight, position-wise, Care?
I would obviously like receivers, since we've chosen to, in modern football, play without them.
Yep.
You know, Chase, just like anything, all I want is best player available. You know, I always love when it's best player available. It's amazing how best player available always seems to be a position of need. It's funny how those two things seem to line up pretty cleanly. You know, I think they need, I mean, there's certainly, the problem is, like, I would like offensive line. This doesn't seem to be a great offensive line draft. This feels like a year where they just take a corner. It's a pretty good corner draft. They'll take a corner in the first round, and it's tough to kind of argue with it, because by the same mindset of why you'd want a receiver, you need corners. The biggest thing, I just always, I'll keep my rules firm and fast. If we take a defensive player, I want him to have red flags. Like, that's really what it boils down to. I judge the process more than I judge, like, who they pick. I judge how they got to the conclusion. Get me some defensive guys with some character issues.
Speaking of, what would you do with Jalen Carter?
Take him.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah.
It goes back to the point I'm making about Stroud. Like, go pop in some Jalen Carter tape.
That's the thing about Richardson. As I've said this so many times, if I'm an NFL guy, I get that he looks like $1 gazillion. So we would all kill to look like that one day of our lives, just to walk around with.
Oh, and forget just looking like that. I would kill just to be that athletic.
Oh yeah, to be able to run like that and spin it the way that he can spin it, and all that. I mean, physically, my God, he passes every single test with flying colors and then some. Right? I mean, he's
even if he didn't have the bazooka. How much fun would it be to just run around one day and in the middle of nowhere just do like a double backflip?
Yeah.
Like, just wake. I think that's how I'd wake up every morning. I'd run down the hall, just do a quick little double backflip and go, like, clap my hands and go, let's go. Like, that's how I'd start my day.
But Ole Miss was playing Arkansas that day, and I was convinced that we were not far away from having to do hot boards and columns and coaching searches, and that was a night game in Fayetteville, and so I spent my afternoon in the Hilton Garden Inn producing content that never saw the light of day. But the game on in my background was Vanderbilt, Florida, and I can't get that game out of my head. If I'm an NFL exec, I can't keep looking at that game and going, yeah, it's going to be fine. He's going to be great. That game would keep me up at night to the point where I'd go, we can't do this.
I understand the idea of, all right, let's take a guy with traits. Have we ever seen a quarterback be decidedly average, maybe slightly above average in college, turn out to be great in the NFL? Because even when people use the example of Josh Allen was very good in college. He just wasn't accurate. Like, he still was good. I just don't like. To me, like I've been racking my brain trying to think of an example. I've never really come up with one.
Well, especially showing that it's not norm. You know what I mean? It has
Everyone tries
every
to use
chance in the world to go the other way.
Also, people try to use the example of Brady. Brady was the Big Ten Player of the Year. Brady got caught up in the Drew Henson and Lloyd Carr wanting a Michigan guy to like. He got caught up in that. But Brady was still the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah. What are you talking about today? I know it's obvious, but the whole show, Grizz.
Oh, I think that's sometimes when you
Breaking
get
down Memphis Tigers spring football today, Joe.
just because they hang the breaking ball doesn't mean you got to take it.
Okay, fair enough.
You
Enjoyed it. Appreciate it, bud.
All right, guys.
I know maybe this is not good for hot takes and social media mentions, but seeing a lot of buzz about Giannis's answer to this question last night and in this press conference. And I had zero issue with the question, and I have zero issue with the answer. I thought, frankly,
Agreed.
both were completely well done in their own ways. I don't know that I necessarily agree with Giannis, but at the same time, I get it. He put a lot of thought into it. It's going around. He was asked last night.
I agree with him completely. Go ahead, you give the context, but I agree with him 1,000%.
Yeah, let me get the reporter's name. Eric Nim, who covers the Bucks for The Athletic, is who asked the question. And he essentially asked Giannis, they lose 128-126 to the Heat last night. As the 1 seed, they're eliminated in the first round 3 years after the title, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
If the season was a failure, if he viewed the season as a failure, and he gives a very long answer. Giannis, obviously the face of the franchise. You asked me the same question last year, I think. Do you get a promotion every year? No, right? So every year you work is a failure? Yes or no? No, every year you work towards something, to a goal, which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able to provide a house for them or take care of your parents. You work toward a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? Exactly. So why are you asking me that question? It's the wrong question. There's no failure in sports. There's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not. That's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other group is going to win, and this year someone else is going to win. Simple as that. We're going to come back next year and try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021, we didn't win a championship. It was 50 years of failure? No, it was not. There were steps to it, and we were able to win one, and hopefully we can win another one. It's a thoughtful answer.
I agree with him. Only one team's going to win, so the other teams are failures? Everything's a failure? I disagree. I just disagree. I mean...
But losing in the first round as a 1 seed is a playoff failure.
Yeah, but it's complex.
I mean, it depends where... Yeah, it's micro, macro. It depends what we're talking about here. But at the same time, I mean...
It's a disappointment. I don't know that it's a failure. They made it as a 1 seed. They got to the 1 seed. It's very difficult to do.
Well, no, they had a great... It's what's funny about it.
They lost to one of the NBA's most all-time underrated players. They were injured. Antetokounmpo was not completely healthy. He got hurt in game 1. If you watch Giannis, you know that the Giannis that lost in this series was not 100% healthy. They're in a market where, as good as they are with Holiday and Middleton and those guys, if you don't completely build through the draft, you're going to have some weaknesses in your team. And Miami's good, and Butler got super hot, and made yesterday a crazy shot to win that game, to send, to extend it. The margin between winning and losing at the highest level like that is so small. I mean, imagine, look, Sacramento is going to lose now. If Harrison Barnes makes that 3, Sacramento's going to win now. You see it all the time. It's really difficult to win.
I just think it's both, because sure, you're not destroying your franchise over it. You're not dismantling everything. Like I think it was The Athletic this morning that alluded to the head coach being fired. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But on the micro level, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, it's fine. I like the answer, so I'm not really even playing devil's advocate. I think he was a question that required some thought potentially. He gave it a lot of thought. He gave an honest answer, which I appreciated, and we all move on. I'm not criticizing the answer. I just think it's also a little convenient at the same time.
It could be, but I mean, if he says, yeah, we failed.
I mean, Kobe would.
Yeah, okay, but not how many people are Kobe?
Well, no, my point, though, is, I mean, there is a standard to – you ask the majority of the fans, hey, did you fail in the postseason if a 1 seed loses in the first round? Unanimously, almost yes. That doesn't mean you blow it up. That doesn't mean you had a bad season. There's a difference.
I just can't – I can't take the opinion of fans into it because they're so emotional. Like, if you ask players –
because you do it in 3 years in a row and you will be fired. So you can't go, hey, we were the 1 seed 3 years in a row.
No,
I mean, like.
I get that. If Memphis doesn't win Game 6, was the season a failure? They were the 2 seed.
They're in a different step in their process, too, though. Once you win a title, what failure means potentially changes on the next one. It's where Giannis has a good point, but I think that's the debate, is where are the Bucks in their process, in their ceiling, that changes things. Because he's right. You can absolutely have playoff losses that feel like huge wins. You're like, hey, this is coming. This is doing this. This is doing this. Whereas you're in the middle of your window and you lose in the first round and don't give yourself a chance.
Right.
That's a completely different outcome, even though the tangible outcome is exactly the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just can cite so many examples of teams that got one and never got another one. That had all the goods to get one and never got one.
Oh, sure.
And when you look at them in Dan Marino, it's his career failure. He never won one. Charles Barkley.
How many times was his team a 1 or a 2?
I mean, a few.
Yeah. Those seasons, potentially. Maybe your career. Okay.
Yeah.
The Braves in the 90s were a failure to some extent. They won 1 title. Potentially. Make the argument.
Yeah, you can. I think it shows you the arbitrary nature of sport.
Because if they go back-to-back in 96, they win the first 2 games in New York. They were up 2-0. They go back to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They blow the 2-0 lead. You win that, you're not. But there is something for 1-2. When it's an extended 15-year run to that level.
Yeah. But look at some of the years that the Braves lost. The performances that knocked them out. The type of people that performed to knock them out. I mean, the other team's trying too, you know?
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's the, full circle in the whole week. Morgan Wallen has that song about the 98 Braves, and
yeah,
the Padres were not as good as the Braves, but they were hot as hell.
Yeah. Phillies last year.
Yeah. The Cubs in 2003.
Do you think the Heat are a title contender? Can they win the title? I have a point.
Let's see. They're the 4. I mean,
they play the 4-5.
They play the 4-5, which is they play New York.
Yeah, they play the Knicks. You could
they can beat the Knicks, sure. And then they would play Boston or Philly.
Yeah. I mean, they get some scheduled. Like, my point is, I think when you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, and again, failure is it's such an arbitrary thing. I mean, we're talking about a very complex topic in very simple terms, so this is kind of stupid. But I think it is, again, not an organizational failure, not a failure to your tenure, to his career, to anything along those lines. But in the micro, a failure in the playoffs, and failure has different degrees. If you're beaten by a team that's not someone who can win the title. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, Boston loses, like the 76ers lose to the Celtics in the conference finals. That was not a failure. But see, you got beat by a good team.
But if Giannis answers this question completely honestly, if he answers it completely honestly, if he says, you know what, I got hurt in game 1. I missed multiple games. I'm not healthy. That's why we lost. That's 2 things. People are going to kill him. Oh, you made excuses. And then you disrespected Jimmy Butler. There's a no-win there other than saying.
And frankly, that is partly why they lost. He was injured.
It's not partly why they lost. It's why they lost.
Yeah. He missed 13 free throws last night.
I mean, he's hurt.
Even though he had 38 and 20.
He's hurt. He hurt his back. He missed games in the series.
Yeah.
When guys miss playoff games, they're hurt.
Yeah.
There were people that did this deal with Kawhi Leonard in Los Angeles. Oh, he's a a P word. He's soft. No, he's got a torn meniscus. You can't play with a torn meniscus. Not effectively, and you're risking long-term injury when you do it. He's going to require surgery. Paul George didn't come back because Paul George got hurt that night against the Thunder.
And I do think Giannis being hurt is what takes it from being a failure, actually, if I really think it through.
Yeah.
Because he's not even full strength. It's like, okay, but I mean, yeah, because like somebody says here, the Grizzlies lose this series. It's incredibly disappointed, but their best player is hurt.
Yeah.
I mean
that's kind of my point about when you make sports an all or nothing proposition. It's really hard to win a title. It's just really,
localize
really hard.
it. Ole Miss's current season is much more of a failure than, hey, you lost a super regional and didn't get back to Omaha. Is that a failure?
Sure.
Well, no, I got beat. I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah. 5-13, 5-12, 5-15 is a failure. I mean, it's a different deal.
Sure. It's just really hard. Joe Madden got asked about this. Was the Cubs run a failure? No. Does he wish they'd won more?
Sure.
Of course.
I mean, I'm a Saints fan. Several opportunities.
But the other teams were trying too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 17 Dodgers were a really good team. The Brewers in 18 were a team of destiny, it seemed like. It came down to one game. You lost a wild card game. Next thing you know, it's falling apart on you. Guys are pressing. It all happens fast. I think that's just kind of my point with it is I get the question, and the question has to be asked. And sometimes as a reporter, you have to ask asshole questions in those moments.
And I don't even know if it was an asshole question, though, because you can say no. It's not, hey, this was a failure, right? Hey, do you consider this a failure?
Right.
Okay.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, players and coaches do take offense to that because they're emotional and high-strung and they need to yell at somebody and the media's in the way. But
and he was frustrated with the question, but then he gave it a thoughtful answer.
Yeah.
And then this is what I hate about what we do. He gives a thoughtful answer, and then everybody just tears him apart for it. And so what do you want him if he says, yes, it was a failure? That's it. Okay. Now we can all burn the building down. I mean, what I don't get. I'll personalize it. Hey, Neal, was your career a failure? On paper, yeah, absolutely. A disastrous failure. Now, in reality, was it a failure? It took me a long time to get to this place, but no, not really. It's okay. No one's going to remember me as a great journalist. Did I achieve my goals? I did not. None of them. So from that perspective, it's a failure. I look back on it and go, but I did some cool things that I didn't think I could do.
Much more complicated answer.
Yeah, but if I answered your question with just, hey, was your career a failure? Yeah. Well, that leaves a lot of context out. A lot. And so I thought his answer provided some context.
Mm-hmm. It did. Yeah, I mean, the true answer is that in the context of you don't know how long your window is going to last, so every year when you don't give yourself an opportunity, it sucks.
Sure.
That's the...
Sure.
I give some credit to, I don't know who it was, and I forget even the player's name last night. The kid for the Pirates, or not kid, the player for the Pirates who came up last night.
Oh, yeah, 33-year-old
Maji.
Maji, yep.
Comes up, played at Arizona State. I know teams and not players. Comes up with the Pirates, gets his first at bat last night. He's 2 weeks shy of his 34th birthday. He's been in the minor leagues for 13 seasons. And in this era of all these pitch clocks and all this stuff, the umpire stepped away and gave him a minute and let the applause come in and the crowd give him the ovation and everything, and really let the umpire recognized it and allowed the moment to happen, something that if the umpire doesn't pick it up there, they've got to go because of the clock. I give him a lot of credit last night for.
I didn't see that, but that's great.
He kind of stopped and he occupied himself for 5 or 10 seconds on purpose to allow the moment to marinate there for the kid or man. He struck out, but
yeah. So
cool.
He failed.
He did fail in that bat. That's correct. Yes, his career's not a failure, but yes, 100%.
No, he's a great story. He's perseverance and determination and not listening to outside people who tell you not to do something. Imagine how many people in his life have said, hey,
13 years, go catch one,
it's not going to work. You're just riding
You've been making
buses.
$30,000 a year for 13 years at most.
Yeah.
Let's do something else.
I mean, he's the prime example of you chase your dreams until you're tired of chasing your dreams, not until somebody else tells you that it's time to stop chasing them, which is 99.99% of us would not do what he did. That's why it stands out, right?
The plucky Pirates, 17-8, winning the Central.
Yeah, and do I suspect that they'll come back to earth a little bit? Sure, but they're playing with a lot of confidence. People are excited. It's kind of fun. I mean, even I cheer for a team that's in the same division. I should be cheering against them.
I was about to say, that's what's funny about these standings. Again, we're only 25 games into the season or whatever we are here. But the Cubs aren't a World Series contender. So this is a standings that you can actually get behind because the Cardinals are in dead last and the Pirates are in first. And hey, it's all right.
If this is the way
you kind of like Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I do like Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
This is if it ends like this, I'm cool with it. I mean, if it ends with Pittsburgh celebrating a championship and the Cardinals in last place, I'm cool. I'm good. 100%. Sign me up.
Plus 31 run differential right now for the Pirates.
They're good. So far.
It's the second highest in the National League.
And this is with the young shortstop breaking his ankle early in the season. He's out for like 6 months, probably for the year.
The Rays already have a plus 87 run differential. I know it happens when you win your first 12 or 13 games of the year, but
I don't think they've lost at home yet.
Yeah, they're 20-5 overall. They're 14-2 at home.
Okay, they've lost a home game. Okay.
Yeah, 14-2 at home. 6-3 on the road. 7-3 in their last 10. They've actually lost 2 in a row. So,
I ran yesterday. I turned 2 games on. I had Baltimore, Boston on my phone, and I was watching the Reds and the who were the Reds playing? You can tell I wasn't super focused on that game. The Reds came back and beat Texas on a walk-off.
Okay.
Senzel hit a home run to walk it off. I was appreciative because I told myself I'm running until the end of this game, and it looked like Texas tied it up in the top of the ninth, and I was like, damn it.
When you could just stop.
I could have. But
I mean, you have a little OCD
in my brain. I'm like, no, we're going to do this until it's over. And then Senzel hit the home run. I was like, thank God. Appreciate you, bud.
I mean, okay. What do we have tonight? By the way, Jordan Walker sit down. Speaking of the Cardinals,
yeah, and I think that's an interesting decision on their part.
They said they can't get him everyday appearances right now, and frankly, he's struggling a little bit. They've been doing a lot of technique stuff with him,
and you knew he was going to struggle
offensively and defensively. He also has not played outfield very much.
You knew he was going to struggle when you brought him up because of a hot camp. You almost had to commit that we're going to stick with you through those first failures, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So you start messing with them a little bit. And I think it's a criticism of that organization. They have a tendency to yo-yo some young players. But their expectation very clearly is to win the Central, and this is the first sign of them not panicking at all because it's way too early to panic. But this is the first sign for them that they're like, oh, this is not anywhere near what we thought this was going to be, and we're going to have to get on our horse a little bit because I think the rest of the division is better than St. Louis thought it was going to be. Cincinnati's not a terrible team. The Cubs are not a terrible team. Pittsburgh is very clearly not a terrible team, and Milwaukee's good. And so if you're St. Louis, a lot of those games that you thought you were going to collect wins, suddenly maybe not so much. I mean, Cincinnati's a good young team. They're young and they don't have enough to compete. The Cubs are not good enough to win the division, but they're not bad enough to suck either. I mean, the Cubs are going to win in the 70s. Maybe get to the early.
So maybe nobody's in that. Yeah.
And Pittsburgh's off to the kind of start.
Nobody's losing 100.
No, I don't think Cincinnati loses 100 games. Pittsburgh damn sure isn't losing 100 games. The Cubs are not losing. Cubs aren't losing 90 games. They might lose 85. But that's
at most.
And I don't think so. I think the Cubs are going to be very much right around 500. 80 and 82, 82 and 80, something like that.
Yeah. Only NBA game tonight, Celtics at Hawks for game 6 of that one. Boston just completely blew game 5. They shouldn't be playing right now, but they have home court if they win. They will face who in the next round? What is the 4-5?
In the East?
Yeah.
It's
the 6. It's the 7. Sorry, who is it?
Who are Miami.
No, Miami gets the Knicks.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look at it.
Okay. There's an East team that I'm completely forgetting is in the playoffs right now, and I don't know why, but I am. So that's where we're sitting currently. Hold on a second, because this is bothering me. Game 7, by the way, on the Lakers Grizzlies would be Sunday.
Yeah.
Along with Game 7 of Golden State Sacramento, and that's
not
now.
Getting to 7. It's over.
That was last night. Wasn't
done.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's tonight. NHL. I did not really watch any last night. I have
It's
no idea.
Philly,
what
Matt
happened.
Browning says.
Oh, yeah, duh. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little off today. Just not quite there. You and Tyler doing a draft show tonight?
We are. We're going to start. What time's the draft start? 7?
Tyler said y'all were starting at 6:45.
Okay.
So I'll take
Tyler's word for it. Tyler's the boss on this one.
That's what Tyler said. He said 6:45. So that's what the draft tonight. Again, no real news out of Ole Miss baseball. The only thing and this is not unexpected. Mike on Tuesday, a little iffy on what Elliott Troll would be this weekend. Some rehab, some soreness. We'll see. I'm not speculating either way because I don't know. But it was not an automatic. Yeah, you'll see him Friday, and it's doing the exact same thing. So I don't know where that sits going.
Hunter was unhappy on Saturday.
Yes. So I don't know what that looks like moving forward or anything else. We will all find out when they announce a rotation at some point today, I would assume, where they are sticking with that. Riley Maddox will for sure pitch this weekend against Georgia. But from a pitching standpoint, that is what we know. So anyway, Ole Miss and Georgia tomorrow night, Saturday and Sunday, double-decker in town this weekend. So a lot of stuff going on locally here in Oxford. But draft show tonight, and then we'll be back with you again starting on Monday. So take care. Have a